coaches. We are so glad you're able to join us today, and we look forward to hearing from you during the webinar. We know there are several new coaches joining us this year, and we want to extend our welcome to you to this group. We also want to extend a warm welcome back to the many of you that are returning from past years. First off, we are aware there were some issues with the email invitation and not all coaches received the invite. This was due to a new email system, and we are working with IT to resolve this issue. So if you did not receive the link, please email Jennifer Fung, and we will continue to follow up with IT to resolve this issue for future webinars. As we move through the material today, we want to be sure you know to type your questions into the chat box. We will be monitoring this chat box throughout the webinar. And when you type your question, please select all panelists and attendees, or everyone, so that we can all see the questions. We will respond to your questions as appropriate throughout the webinar and as they relate to the topics being presented. And there will be time at the end for additional questions. If at any time we are unable to answer your question during the webinar, we will follow up with you individually at a later date. And if you need technical assistance during the webinar, we have Wahid on the line with us, and so please comment in the chat box, and that way he will be able to respond to your needs there. With that, we'll go ahead and move through to introductions. So good morning, this is Kelly DeBoer, and I'm a pre-K specialist in the ECAP program, the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program at the Department of Early Learning.
And good morning, everybody. I am Jennifer Fung, and I work at the University of Washington. I work in collaboration with what was formerly known as Sequel, the organization at UW that was formerly known as Sequel, which is now Cultivate Learning, and I'll share a bit more about that in a moment. But I work at the University of Washington's Herring Center, which is an early learning center that does research, demonstration, and training on individualization and inclusion of kids from all backgrounds and abilities. I will share a bit more about some professional development opportunities that we have this year at the Herring Center, but I am glad to be here with you this morning.
Thanks, Jen. So today, as Jen mentioned, she's going to talk a little bit about Cultivate Learning and introduce them to us. And we will share information about the collaborative format for the monthly coach webinar. This webinar is the webinar that is required for coaches who support ECAP-funded classrooms. So this meets those contract requirements. And we will review the schedule of webinars for the year. We'll look at available coaching resources and upcoming professional development opportunities. And we will share updated contact information for who to go to with your coaching questions. And again, we'll have time at the end for any questions you may have for us as we start this new year of coaching and support.
Perfect. Okay, so just a brief introduction to the change. For those of you who have been coaches in the past, many of you have been familiar with the University of Washington's Sequel Center, CQEL. Sequel is the center that leads the new coach framework trainings, leads trainings on ECHRS and CLASS. Sequel has also provided coach consultations and support. And the same functions are still available through the new center, but Cultivate Learning is basically a rebrand of this Sequel Center because Sequel, originally when it started, the title Sequel was about childcare quality and early learning, research and training. But as the QRIS has expanded to not only include childcare, but also to include state programs such as ECAP. The name Sequel with the words childcare in it didn't really fit. And then Sequel has had also started to expand some of their support and quality improvement to before and after school care. So they decided to kind of do a rebrand that really encompassed all of the early learning and support and training and professional development that they were doing across the board, not just to childcare facilities anymore. So Cultivate is a new name, but lots of the same familiar faces that you would see there, and lots of the same, as I mentioned, professional development and coaching support opportunities, which we will get into in a few slides.
Thanks, Jen. So a little bit of background information about this new collaborative webinar format. So DEL, ECAP, and the University of Washington Cultivate Learning have partnered together to create one monthly webinar for coaches. Over the past couple of years, we have heard from coaches that it was sometimes confusing to know which webinar was required to meet the ECAP requirements. And there were coaches who support both ECAP classrooms and licensed childcare sites and felt they needed to attend both, and it was sometimes challenging to fit it all in. And so just in response to the general comments and feedback from coaches, the Department of Early Learning and the University of Washington Cultivate Learning have come together and created one monthly webinar for all Early Achievers coaches. And so this new collaborative webinar will satisfy the requirements in the ECAP contract statement of work, section 11.6.3, that requires coaches supporting ECAP-funded classrooms to participate in ongoing Early Achievers Coach webinars. So this is that required webinar. We are really hopeful that by working together and providing one monthly webinar, we can help alleviate confusion and free up some of your time to be more available to sites. We look forward to engaging in deeper conversations with you about topics that are meaningful to your work. So webinars are set, this first webinar, we realize is not the first Friday of the month, but this is really our introductory webinar just to set the tone for the year. Monthly webinars will take place the first Friday of each month at 9 a.m., November through May, and dates were sent out along with the invite. They're November 3rd, December 1st, January 5th, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 6th, and May 4th. Webinar invites will come via email about 2 weeks prior to each of the webinars. And again, if you continue to not receive the invite and you're hearing from others that they did, please let us know so that we can connect with IT to get those issues resolved. Webinars will be recorded and posted in both the Coaching Companion and on the Department of Early Learning website in the ECAP Coaching Toolkit. There are limited number of recorded webinars and materials available from past Sequel webinars are available on the Cultivate Learning website, and then all the past ECAP webinars are available on the DEL Coaching Toolkit.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. As I mentioned, both the Department of Early Learning and the University of Washington's Cultivate Learning Center provide a variety of ongoing professional development opportunities and coaching support for our coaches who are out there working in the field. Each webinar, we will share some upcoming professional development opportunities just to make sure that everyone is aware of them. So for those of you who are new or who are looking for some more information on ERS trainings, there is an Eckers Deep Dive training in Seattle on November 3rd. There is also a Fickers Deep Dive training in Seattle on December 1st. We also have an upcoming class training for the pre-K class reliability in Tacoma on November 16th and 17th. And to find out more information about those, you can simply click on the links that are on the PowerPoint slides, and you are able to register through Cultivate Learning. We also, for those of you who are new coaches and have not had an opportunity to participate in the 2-day Cultivate Learning New Coach Framework training, there is a new coach framework training that is taking place on December 13th and 14th in Spokane. I see a question that is asking if the training schedule will be emailed out to participants. We can definitely do that. The Cultivate Learning events coordinator has an email list that she sends upcoming trainings to, but that can certainly be something that we will email out following this webinar. I can also check in with her to see who is on the emails that she sends out regarding professional development opportunities to make sure that everyone is included in those. So yes, we will be following up with an email. Okay, and then regarding another professional development opportunity, this is in regards to the roof of the Early Achievers framework, where we focus on highly individualized teaching and learning for all children. As I mentioned, I work at the Herring Center, and the Herring Center is a small center on the University of Washington campus where we do research, training, and service in practice related to individualization and support for children with a variety of learning and behavioral needs. So actually at the Herring Center, we have a small school. We have classrooms in birth to 3, classrooms that are preschool classrooms, and we also have kindergarten classrooms. And within those classrooms, they are integrated. So some children have identified developmental delays and disabilities. Some children have individualized education plans. And then some of the children are typically developing and have not been identified as having any sort of developmental delay or disability. We do trainings. We offer 2-day individualization internships for early achievers coaches, where they can come through and come learn about a whole host of practices and approaches related to supporting children who are not learning as expected, or maybe children who are presenting with challenging behaviors. So we definitely encourage all coaches. The Department of Early Learning has specified a certain number of internships for CCA coaches, a certain number of internships for ECAP coaches, and a certain number of internships for infant toddler consultants. So we definitely encourage people to check out the available dates to register for the internships. A big part of the internships is doing observation and within the classrooms of the school, so we can see the practices that we're talking about in action in an actual early learning setting. There is no charge to register for the internships, and travel, including mileage for coaches who drive and airfare for coaches who fly, as well as lodging. All costs associated with the internships are reimbursed by the Herring Center. So this is our 4th year of offering these internships. We love to meet coaches, and for those of you who have not registered yet, like I said, we definitely encourage you to check out the link, see what the available dates are, and register if possible. For those of you who have any questions about the individualization internships, definitely shoot me an email. My contact information will be in the last few slides of this webinar. I would love to answer your questions and help you decide if the individualization internship would be something you'd be interested in.
So in addition to the trainings provided by Cultivate Learning for the Early Achievers coaches, the Department of Early Learning ECAP program and Cultivate have partnered to schedule some ECHRS reliability training for coaches supporting ECAP funded classrooms. And those dates are listed here in the slide, as well as registration links and dates are found in the monthly reminders and links that comes from the Department of Early Learning. The ECHRS reliability initial observations are designed for coaches who have completed a deep dive but who have not yet taken a reliability training and would like to become reliable in the tool. Those trainings are 3 days long and are a combination of classroom observation, mock interviews, coding, and debrief time. And then the ECHRS reliability rechecks are designed for coaches who are currently reliable in ECHRS or who have already taken a 3-day reliability training and need to complete another observation or two to reach reliability or to maintain their reliability. And so for those, coaches can sign up for the number of days needed to do that, to maintain or achieve their reliability. And so coaches must first complete an ECHRS deep dive training prior to registering for one of these reliability sessions. And so those deep dive trainings that are being offered through Cultivate Learning at UW are the deep dives for the state. So pay attention to those dates. And more information comes out monthly in the ECAP reminders and links.
Perfect. We also wanted to provide a couple of online resources, other resources that are different than the in-person trainings and internships. We are really excited about a new online resource through Cultivate Learning called Circle Time Magazine. And Circle Time Magazine is a new resource from Cultivate Learning for early childhood educators. So this will be an online web series really designed to enhance the professional development and learning of educators. Each different episode will focus on a different topic, and each episode will feature guests who are sharing their tips and expertise related to the topic, trying out new materials, highlighting their favorite books, and also showing video examples so that participants can see the different strategies and see the children engaging with the different learning materials, really see these strategies in action. What we also think is exciting is that each episode has what we call a coaching corner that will have tools for coaches to work with their providers and educators who might be watching the Circle Time Magazine episodes, and really are tools for coaches to help set goals related to the content, forms and resources to help do focused observation and practice related to the topics, and also to give feedback. The first edition of Circle Time Magazine is on the Cultivate Learning website right now, and this first edition focused on numeracy and number concepts. So we definitely encourage coaches to check out that new resource, check out Circle Time Magazine, and then think about if you're working with any educators who this might be an appropriate resource for them. We also wanted to share information about our ongoing coach consultation through Cultivate Learning. We have a variety of coach consultants and a coach support team who all specialize in different content areas, ranging from really expertise in practice-based coaching and some of the foundational practices. We have coach supporters who have expertise in reflective supervision. We have coach supporters who have expertise in dual language learners. We have coach supporters who specialize in, helping educators assess children's development and determine when there might be an issue with development. Coaches who specialize in individualization and addressing challenging behaviors. So we really encourage all coaches to check out this this resource and check out the online sign up page. You can directly book. You can sign up. Each coach supporter has, office hours, and coaches can sign up directly through the website for a time to check in with these coach supporters.
The next are looking at some topics for the year. These topics that are potentially planned for the year include feedback we've received from coaches through webinar evaluation, coaching questions that have come in, and recent studies on coaching. And so some of the things we'll be focusing on this upcoming year are looking overall at the continuous quality improvement cycle and what that means for all of you. And we'll look at collaborative partnerships to develop shared understanding between teachers and coaches around the goals and process of coaching, integrated knowledge of cultures and populations in the communities that you support and how that gets integrated into your coaching work. Developing an increased comfort with coaching strategies that promote learning, and building that ability to work well with different teachers, even when they may have different values around teaching and learning. In the areas of goal setting and action planning, we'll be looking at ways to support teachers in writing goals and action plans that are SMART goals. They're specific, measurable, observable, and realistic. We'll be developing action plans with teachers that provide step-by-step procedures for meeting the teacher's goal. So sometimes, teachers are able to set the goal, but how do they break it down into the individual steps they need to actually attain that goal? Ways to support teachers in assessing and identifying their own strengths and areas of growth based on multiple assessments that you may be doing with them. And then looking more at focused observations. So how are observations linked directly to the goal and action plan of the teacher, and utilizing data that's appropriate for the goal and the action that's in place. In the area of reflection and feedback, look at ways to support teachers' ongoing reflection about progress on the implementation of their teaching practices, and then how you can ask questions that provide information and stimulate thinking in support of the teacher's learning and goals. And then throughout all of that, we'll look at several communication topics, coaching with cultural responsiveness in mind. How do you plan for conversations with staff who may be resistant to feedback or resistant to change? How do you plan for and have conversations with directors, ECAP contractors, childcare managers, those pieces, and then building positive climate. What's needed to build positive climate in the sites that you're working in, and then as well as communicating the value of the tools that we use, such as ERS in class. That's kind of a broad overview of topics we'll be touching on throughout the year.
Like Kelly said earlier in the webinar, we really want these webinars to be meaningful and touch on topics that are meaningful in your current practice, in your current coaching work with educators. So we will be seeking your feedback following each webinar in a couple different areas. One, looking at the most current webinar. Was that content useful? How applicable is it to your current work? But then also looking forward, we will continuously seek feedback from coaches on what else could we be touching on? What other content could we be covering and discussing in these webinars? What other resources could we be sharing during the webinars? So please look in your email inboxes following the webinars for a link to surveys and evaluations following each webinar. So that we can continue to make these, the content and the resources we share as meaningful as possible.
So here's a list of contact information. So if you have ECAP specific policy related questions or a need for technical assistance, and you're supporting an ECAP classroom, you would want to contact the pre-K specialist who is assigned to that program. And there is a list here in the webinar. And what we'll do when we email the professional development opportunities to you, we will include a PDF version of this PowerPoint so that you have all of these links as well. If you need technical assistance for WELS, you would contact QRIS@del.wa.gov. And if you have any coaching related questions, you can contact myself, Kelly DeBoer, or Jennifer Fung. And then at times during the webinar, if you need technical assistance support, either connecting to the webinar or in webinar assistance, you can contact Mark McCarty. Our next webinar is scheduled for Friday, November 3rd at 9 a.m. And now we'd love to hear from you. I see we have a few questions that have come through in the inbox today. I know, Jen, it looks like Mariana was asking if it was possible for GCA to get a list of attendees from the webinar.
I will work with our IT on that. I know we're able to see who logs in for each of the webinars. Okay. I will work on getting that. And I see the question from Christine Wilson regarding a list of specializations. I'm working on getting that information into the chat box right now.
Great.